Hey everyone, welcome to Amanda's Book Corner. I'm Amanda, and this is my review of To Marry and to Meddle by Martha Waters. This is a third book in a Regency Vows series, and I want to give a special thanks to NetGalley and Atria Books for giving me an advanced reader's copy of this book in exchange for an honest review. To Marry and to Meddle comes out on April 5th, which is in just a few days, so this is definitely one that you'll want to pick up as soon as it's available. So if you've been reading the Regency Vows series, To Marry and to Meddle picks up exactly where To Love and to Loathe left off. In fact, it starts only a few days after the other one ended. Last summer I read and loved To Love and to Loathe. It was an adorable and fun and hilarious book. I thought it was so cute. I did read this one knowing it was a second book in a series, and I had not yet read the first one. So a few weeks ago I decided to go back and read To Have and to Hoax, and it was just as delightful as the second one was. And it was a really fun book, and actually this one was really helpful because this is the one where you find out how the stars of To Marry and to Meddle actually meet. To Marry and to Meddle follows Emily Turner and Julian Belfry. Julian Belfry is a young man, he's about 30 years old, and he is the second son of a Marquess, but he has kind of gone rogue and gone against what society expects of him, and he, about 10 years before this, he opened his own theater. Now, this is at a time when upper class and titled people are not supposed to work at all, and it's even worse that it's a theater because theaters are not considered respectable. At this point, he and his father are kind of estranged from each other, and in an effort to kind of prove that he's actually as respectable and successful as he wants his father to see him, he's decided that it's time for him to get a wife, preferably a very respectable young woman who can help improve his reputation and his image, and hopefully get the Belfry, his theater, some better clientele, including not just these upper-class men who often bring their mistresses, but he wants them to bring their wives instead. So as we saw over the last couple months in the first two books, he and Emily Turner have connected and kind of formed a little bit of a courtship going on. And so in this book, Julian Belfry decides to propose a marriage of convenience with Emily Turner. Now Lady Emily, she also has her own reasons to enter into a marriage of convenience. Although her two best friends, Violet and Diana, have already found love matches, she doesn't really see that for herself, and in fact she has some pressing reasons not to wait as long as it takes to get a marriage of love. Her family is in debt, and because of this, she, for the last 3 seasons, has kind of been exploited and courted by this icky man named Mr. Cartham. He's not a good person, and he doesn't treat her well, and she definitely does not want to marry him. He's also not titled or anything, so it's not exactly the best match that she could make. But she's been forced to be seen with him because he's the one who's kind of handling her parents' debts. So what Julian offers her is he will pay off her family's debts and get her out of this creepy relationship with Mr. Cartham if she will be his wife, and all she has to do is use her good respectability that she has and improve his image, prove that she is a good wife, and that she and other women like her should be going to his theater. Seems like a pretty good trade-off, right? So at the beginning of the book, these two go into it with their eyes wide open. They have a friendly relationship with each other, and they do have a mutual attraction to each other, but they don't expect this to be anything more than a friendly, perfect business transaction that has some extra perks to it. But they don't expect to fall in love. But it's a romance, so we know that something's going to happen. Oh, and a very important thing, this book has a really adorable cat in it. On Julian and Emily's wedding night, this little kitten kind of interrupts things and scratches up Julian's arm, and he is adorable. We love this kitten. Julian does not, but the rest of us do. His name is Cecil, and he's adorable. So I want to start this review by saying that Martha Waters has done an excellent job of really making her books feel interconnected. In a lot of romance series, it might be a series, but the characters in one book don't make a huge appearance in the other books. In this series, it's the exact opposite. The characters are completely enveloped in each other's lives, and in fact are a large part of why things happen with these other people. And in this case, Emily wouldn't have even met Julian if it hadn't been for her friends Violet and James having some marital issues in book 1 To Have and to Hoax. That's the whole reason they met. So this series really does a great job of making you fall in love with the characters even before it's actually their book. And in this case, I really already had a good idea of who Julian and Emily were. I already loved their characters, and I could already see their little relationship beginning to form over the first 2 books, so I was very excited for this one. Of course, the characters that we saw in those first 2 books are a little bit deeper here in To Marry and to Meddle. We get to see a lot more nuances and layers of their characters, and I really like that. In the first two books, Emily came across as very naive and gentle and very innocent but kind and just like a proper, perfect lady of society. But in this book, we start to see that she has a lot more to her. She doesn't really like being forced to be this kind of peacemaker in society and being always on her best behavior. She has opinions and she has desires, and she's had to suppress all of this for a long time. And we see this start to come out in her relationship with Julian and how she doesn't necessarily want to just be his perfect wife that gives him a good reputation. She wants to have more involvement with the theater, and she wants to be able to let loose a little bit. So I really like seeing her strength of character. She has some real mettle to her, but also seeing how she's opinionated and she wants more than what she's always had to be. With Julian, in the first two books, we saw him as being rather charismatic and lighthearted and fun. He seems like a very chill and fun guy, but definitely kind of a rogue or kind of a rake. And in this book, we start to see that he has a lot more depth to him than that. He's not just an actor and second son of a Marcus gone rogue. He's also someone who really cares about people. You can see that he really cares about his siblings and his parents, even if he's estranged from his dad. And we can see how much he really cares about Emily, even before they've fallen in love or anything like that. He always does care for her, and he wants what's best for her, even if that's not what's best for him or what's best for how society views her. And so I really like that both of these characters have a lot more going on below the surface than what we saw in the first two books. It doesn't completely change their characters, but it does add to them, and I think that's really wonderful. I also really love the chance to get to learn about the theater in 1817, which is when the book is set. This is at a time when to be an actor or an actress was looked down upon very much, and to own a theater was definitely very scandalous for someone of Julian's position in society. And it's also interesting because at this time, as I mentioned, men of his class did not work. It was unusual and a little bit weird, scandalous, looked down upon for someone like him to work. Moreover, having a theater is even worse, and working with actors is horrible, and people just do not respect him. They see his theater as somewhere to take your mistress but not your wife. It has kind of this seedy reputation. Even so, it's really interesting to see how he works within the theater, how he's very involved with his theater. He doesn't just own it, he's very much involved in deciding what plays to put on, who the actors and actresses are, what the direction is in terms of like how comedic or how serious the plays are, what the design of the whole place is. He's very hands-on in his theater, and it's also interesting to see what kinds of plays they're putting on and what kind of reputation those plays have and what kind of audience they're expected to attract. So I thought that was really cool. I haven't really read much about the theater, whether in the past or in the present, so I thought that was really fun to learn about. I also love the different family dynamics that we see in this book. For Emily's case, as I said before, she has for the last 6 seasons, she is 23 now, she has for the last 6 seasons been in a precarious position because her family has been in debt, and for the last 3 seasons she's had to kind of have a courtship with this odious Mr. Cartham character. And now that she's suddenly married this man Julian, who doesn't have the best reputation, she and her parents kind of have a conflict of opinion, and her parents are shocked but also rather upset with her, despite how well Julian treats her and how he pays off their debts. And especially with her mom, we see how her mom has been very controlling and really pushes her daughter, pushes Emily to be perfect at all times. Emily can't even have a dessert without her mom kind of pointing it out and saying, oh, you shouldn't be eating desserts, you're gonna gain weight, your husband should keep you in your place, and all these horrible comments. So you can see how Emily has a very strained relationship with her parents, and it's a very difficult thing for her. And from Julian's perspective, he's like, why don't you just cut off contact with your parents? Like, they're not good to you. Why have them in your life? But from Emily's perspective, she still wants to have that relationship, even if it is kind of a fraught relationship. She still wants to at least try to maintain some kind of relationship with her parents, even though they haven't treated her that well. And then on Julian's side, we see how his father, years before the book begins, his father and him kind of had a disagreement, and they've been estranged for a long time. Even so, Julian is still close with his older brother and his younger sister, and with his mom to a degree as well. But with his dad, it's just been complete silence for the last 4 years. And you can see how much this really does affect Julian, and he doesn't really like to talk about it or even think about it. But you can tell that deep down he does care about his dad's approval, and he does want to kind of rekindle that relationship, even though it's been so long now. I really like how both Emily and Julian help each other in their respective family issues. Emily wants to help Julian and his dad reconnect, whereas Julian wants to make sure that Emily is treated well by her parents. And I really like to see that care that they have for each other and how they stick up for each other and their own different family dynamics. They do have a lot of respect for each other, and I think this really helps in their slowly building romance that they have with each other. So they're married pretty much from the first chapter of this book, maybe the second chapter, and I just really love seeing their relationship grow from this kind of like friendship and tentative marriage that they're in, and how it slowly grows in their respect for each other, their understanding of each other, how they really begin to care for each other more than they probably thought that they would. Theirs is a very gentle and sweet love, and I really like how gradually and naturally it develops between the two of them at about the same pace, I would say. I like that their love isn't super dramatic and doesn't have unnecessary conflicts thrown in just for the sake of it. I like that for them it really feels realistic, and that the conflicts that they have aren't necessarily with each other, they're with other things, like those family problems that I mentioned. But I like that they are such a solid couple, and over the course of the book, you start to see them really fall in love with each other. I think they might be the cutest and sweetest couple out of the three that we've seen in the Regency Vows series so far. I mean, Violet and James were very fun and kind of explosive couple. A lot of anger, a lot of passion. It was very fun, but a little bit dramatic. With Violet and Jeremy, it's also very fun, and they have like a lot of banter and disagreements, but it's kind of more low-key and fun in contrast to the first couple. But you can still see that they have kind of, they do butt heads a lot, and it's pretty fun, but they have that kind of dynamic. Their love language is arguing with each other, I guess. But with Julian and Emily, their relationship is just cute and sweet and caring, and I just love them. So one thing I do want to mention about this series overall is I love how these books don't focus on quite the same types of characters that I often see in Regency romances. On the one hand, we see at least two of the books are about married couples. And the first one is about a couple that's been married for 5 years, and in this case, they're newlyweds. But I like seeing kind of a married couple so they don't have quite the same barriers to their relationship that you often see. They live together, they're married, they can do a lot of things that unmarried people could not do back then. And so it's interesting to kind of see that. I also like that the characters aren't quite as young as you often see. These are not women in their first season who are only 18 years old falling in love with people. These are women who are in their 20s, and in the case of Violet, she's been in 6 seasons so far, so she's 23 at this point. And we're seeing her in a relationship with someone who's, well, in his case, he's actually 30, but all the other characters are in their 20s. So I like that we're seeing people that are a little bit older, not old, obviously, but a little bit older than the first season teenagers that we often see. So I really thought To Marry and to Meddle was a delightful and sweet and just perfect book. I gave it 5 stars. Also, I'm not sure if this is the last book in the series or if there's more to come. If there is more to come, and I hope there is, I'm still hoping to see a story between West and Sophie. West is the older brother of James, who we saw in the first book. So I'm rooting for them and them getting their own story. I'm also kind of curious to see if Penville will get his own story as well. Not sure who he would be with, but he could have a story. We never know. But regardless of if there's more to come or if that's the end of the road, I have loved this series so much, and I think it's just delightful and so fun and so witty, and it has a frivolous and charming style to it. One final thing I will mention, by the way, is if you do want to read this book, I do recommend you read the first 2 books in the series first. A lot of romance series can work as standalones, but in this case, and it does work as a standalone, but in this case, I do think that the characters are so completely interconnected with each other's stories that it is beneficial to have read the first 2 books before getting to this one. That's just my recommendation, though. But yeah, To Marry and to Meddle was a perfect book. I loved it. It was delightful. So I hope you enjoyed this book review video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you don't miss any more of my videos, please ring the bell to get all my notifications. I put out about 2 to 3 book review videos like this one every week, as well as one to do other videos like listicles and vlogs. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!